Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the EmeraldPlanet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the EmeraldPlanet, Dr. Sam Lee Hens.
Hello and welcome to the EmeraldPlanet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, technologies, services, and products are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we add 2 billion new people by 2050 to the planet, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people, to provide the food, the fuel, the fiber, the transportation, education, but also the housing, and at the same time to provide jobs for all these new people. And we have someone that's really working at all these different areas, which is absolutely amazing. Alix W. Henry, she's the president of what's called Biotecture and Earth. She's coming in by Skype, and sitting right beside me is our special guest that we have on a regular basis now, Dr. Jose Colucci Rios. He's a professor, associate dean, retired out of the College of Engineering at the University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez in Puerto Rico. And thank you for being here. It's always good to have you. And Alix, I think you're already here.
Hello.
Well, welcome. Welcome to the EmeraldPlanet TV. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Say, tell us a little bit about this very unique name that you have for your organization, this Biotecture Planet Earth. What's the mission and the vision as far as your organization?
So Biotecture Planet Earth is a 501c3 that is in Taos, New Mexico in the United States. And our mission is to bring sustainable housing techniques and construction techniques to the world. And we do a lot of humanitarian projects where we go out after a disaster, for instance, like a hurricane or a typhoon or an earthquake, and we go and help people rebuild their communities using sustainable building techniques.
Yeah, I think it's just amazing. And also people talk about trash and waste and all that, but really, you don't really have that in your lexicon of words anymore. You're repurposing virtually every kind of thing in building these very special structures. So tell us a little bit about what you do, and then how does it address some of the critical issues that we're facing on planet Earth at this time?
Absolutely. So one of the primary building materials that we like to use is an automobile tire rammed with earth. It makes the perfect brick for a passive solar building. So we're able to make buildings that heat and cool themselves without any use of fossil fuel energy. And tires are pretty much anywhere in the world. I think there's like 242 million scrap tires per year generated in the United States alone. Mm-hmm. And so we find that material anywhere in the world, and we're able to build these, it's the way that we build the structure of the building. So it's the walls and the heating and cooling system. And then this is an example in this photograph of how we also utilize cans and concrete, and we use plastic bottles, we reuse cardboard. We will find whatever material is waste in the area and incorporate them into the building.
Yeah, and the amazing thing about this is that
allows us.
Yeah, I was going to say the amazing thing about this is that you can take just about any kind of materials, looks beautiful, and at the same time, you're taking it out of the waste stream and putting it, as we say, repurpose all of this. And it comes out as just an absolutely gorgeous structure. And then you're tying in renewable energy and other types of ways of using whatever resources at the local areas. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So not only are they available materials that are basically considered waste around the world, they actually produce gorgeous structures. We end up having buildings that look like they are mosaics, and people get very creative with using colored bottles, or the bottoms of plastic bottles end up looking like flowers in a wall, but it's actually creating the structure for the building and sometimes letting light into the building, and then also allowing us to create buildings that have catch their own water. These materials are easy to form, kind of organic forms, which allow us to slope the roof to a gutter and collect the water. So that's one of the important pieces of why we do this in kind of disaster-stricken areas, is because we're able to automatically collect water and that is safe to drink, and provide kind of some of the resources that are really stripped from areas when a disaster hits. So we get clean water to the site. This is an example of the Philippines. This is called a wind ship. So this is a modification of one of the designs. It's designed really so that the wind can go over the building and also shelter the people so that it's a safe place to go. This is a community center in the Philippines that was built after the hurricane there.
Yeah, and the whole thing about it is that
so a lot of people were involved in building this building.
Right, yeah, and the whole thing about it is to design these so that you're using all the natural resources, as you say. You're using the wind, the rainwater, so many things that can be done from there. Jose, I think you have the next question.
Sure. Yes, good evening, Alix. Very interesting, the slides. I have one question. Could you elaborate a little more on why are these sustainable buildings critical or important for humanitarian purposes?
We love to do this kind of work because, first of all, it's something that people can do with their hands without very much skill set. And so you're able to get out there in the middle of an area that doesn't have a lot of maybe expertise in construction, and we can then rebuild buildings that will withstand the forces of nature and basically protect people and use less resources in doing it. So it's a demonstration of a different way of living. Maybe it's a type of building that won't be blown away when the next hurricane comes. But also it's a way to live in a very comfortable way and use as minimal amount of resources as possible. Fossil fuel use is very restricted in these buildings because we don't use any fossil fuels to heat or cool the buildings. We tend to use only solar photovoltaics for electricity and wind power for electricity, so not connecting back to any grids, which is also pretty helpful in these kind of humanitarian projects where sometimes the infrastructure system never made it there, or the infrastructure has been damaged, like what happened in Puerto Rico recently.
Yeah, and looking at these structures and where you're using the local, what used to be considered trash, like the plastic bottles and the cans, now becoming part of the architecture, not only as building materials, but also the aesthetic use. And that's something you're seeing right here with the different colors and all of that, and also using the local soil, much of which is very compacted and may not be useful as far as agriculture, but certainly people need to have housing. So looking at what's an Earthship? This is something that Jose and I have been marveling about. And why are these so important as we progress through the 21st century?
Well, an Earthship is a self-sufficient living structure that basically keeps the inhabitants warm and sheltered and cool and sheltered using recycled materials. We catch all of our water from the roof and divert it into cisterns and use on-site collection of water for all domestic use. And then we treat that water in gray water treatment and black water treatment planters. So basically we recycle all of the water, and then we always use as much renewable energy as possible for all of the electrical loads. And then the buildings also, we're able to generate food in the interior and exterior gray water planters. And so basically it's an idea about housing that can take care of the people, and then people can learn how to build them themselves. I built my own, and it's something with low-tech skill set and minimal tools in order to really build wonderful, beautiful structures. And why is it important for the world? Well, I think that we're pretty much heading towards a crisis with the amount of energy, the destruction of habitat through energy use and extraction of fossil fuels. We're having water crises all over the world. We know that the temperatures are rising. So if we can reduce the demand and have a higher quality of life, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What would be 3 of the main or the most important ideas or developments that actually has come out of your organization, Biotecture Planet Earth? And we have to be quick. We're starting to run out of time.
Great. Well, we're really proud of some of the projects we've been doing right now down in Puerto Rico, rebuilding Puerto Rico, and we're looking forward to the future with other projects that we can incorporate more volunteers from around the world. We've used about 500 volunteers or so to date from all over the world. So transferring that knowledge.
Well, looking at this photograph here, actually, Jose, you have the next question, so jump in.
Sure.
And we have to be quick. We have about a minute left.
Yeah, Alex, these are fascinating projects, but could you identify 2 that basically makes you that is very exciting to you? Where are they? And also, why did you pick those places to have those projects?
I'm most excited right now about the Puerto Rico project that we've been doing. We're staging to go down there again. We went pretty quickly after the hurricanes and are kind of trying to develop a demonstration project down there. I'm excited about that because it's in Puerto Rico. It's close to us where we are in the United States, and I think that there's a huge demand. I'm also excited right now about the Zuni project, which is on the boards. We're doing our first veterinary clinic in the middle of the Zuni Nation out in western United States on a Native American reservation.
Alex,
So
we're running out of time. Alex,
yeah.
we're running out of time. I want to ask you, what do you see for the expansion and growth of your organization 5, 10, 15 years? And we got to be quick. We got about 15 seconds left.
All right. We are hoping to just have as many people involved in this as possible, and we would like to evolve these designs and keep improving on the planet.
That's absolutely fantastic. Alix W. Henry, President of Biotecture Planet Earth. Dr. Jose Colucci sitting right beside me, Professor, Associate Dean, retired from Puerto Rico. And thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education.
I dare you to be somebody important.
Like be a teacher or a reality TV star.
I dare you to stand up here.
To call the shots.
To be a role model.
An inspiration. An innovator.
To be a teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you.
Have a career that really means something?
Then do it.
I dare you.
They say you don't have to be so strong. But this is my mother, my purpose. Strength is not optional. See, I lift her now like she raised me then. So I know my strength is super, but I'm still human.
Oh, look who's here.
to the Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet as we look around the globe looking for what we call the best of the best, the 1,000 best practices, really the solutions that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we go to a planet that will have 9 billion people by 2050 and maybe 12 to 13 billion by the end of the century, how we're going to be able to take care of all these people so that they have an increased quality of life and not just exist. And there's a gentleman that's been working at this for a number of years to make sure that we're actually taking all the materials that we have on Earth. Many people would say it's trash or rubbish, and he's saying, no, this is repurposed natural resources that we're going to be using to make new creations that's going to take care of this new generation that's coming along. This is Michael Reynolds. He's the director of Earthship and also the Biotecture representative. He's coming in by Skype. And then right next to me is a good friend who comes on a regular basis, Dr. Jose Colucci Rios, a professor, associate dean, retired at the College of Engineering at the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. And we're glad to have you back with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. And Michael, you're coming in by Skype, and I think you're already here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. I tell you, this is just absolutely fantastic, the work that you're doing, and these Earthships. You know, everybody, we've been telling about it for the last couple of weeks. They're just amazed at the work that you've been doing and how you've been going about this. Tell us, what is an Earthship? And tell us a little bit about your organization focus on Earthships and why.
Well, an Earthship is, they call it a vessel. Living vessel for this planet that addresses 6 issues that every human has to face in the village or city. And the issues are water, comfortable shelter, electricity, something to do in terms of treating their sewage, and something to do with their garbage, and food. Every human has to deal with these issues, and we make this vessel address those issues.
Well, Michael, what you're doing and how you're integrating all this into it as far as the addressing water, wastewater, food production, energy, but at the same time give them a very comfortable enclosure so that they have the proper warmth when they need it, they have the cooling at other times when it's most important. And it's interesting how you're using repurposed materials in order to do that. But you're also collaborating with an organization that's called Biotecture Planet Earth. And what do you think that name really means, and how does that fit in, almost dovetail with your Earthships?
Well, we had to actually invent another profession, because architecture was not really stepping up to the plate, so to speak. And it's trying, but it's got too much inhibiting it from really moving fast enough with the changing of living conditions on this planet. So we invented the profession that we call biotecture. And then we made a nonprofit to be able to receive funds to promote this profession. And so Biotecture Planet Earth is the nonprofit that will actually be able to take this into humanitarian projects.
Structure and the one that we just looked at where you're actually using the bottles and building the wall. I mean, people think of these repurposed materials and it may be something that's very odd or strange, but what you've done is you've taken something very ordinary materials and created something that's absolutely almost fantastical, and doing this out in the high desert. And I think this is just very exciting what it is you're doing with all these different materials. Jose, I think you have the next question.
Yes, Michael, hi, good evening. Let's go back to those 6 main principles. Could you elaborate a little bit more on some of them specifically? How do you apply them to a particular building?
Well, a building heats and cools itself via solar encounter and thermal mass. We actually say that these buildings encounter the natural phenomena of the planet, to provide the utilities, to replace the utilities that we have in our infrastructure. And they, of course, catch rainwater, and they treat their sewage with biology and contain it on site. No sewage leaves the building. And by virtue of the fact that they're using sewage in botanical cells, they're growing food. And so we're basically addressing these 6 things within the performance of the building.
Left this slide up for quite a while so that people can actually read through these 6 principles, and I think this is very important because this is really a holistic building and a holistic lifestyle, which is quite different where everything we have in modern society, we think we're so sophisticated, but it's very fragmented. And what you're doing is you're taking and putting this all together. But why tires incorporating in your structures? We'll get to the bottles and the cans and all that in a few minutes, but why tires?
Well, I think the picture there shows why tires. They are a natural resource of this planet. If you came here from another planet, you would think that tires grew here. And in fact, they do. They're indigenous to the entire planet. And we started by kind of a contrived effort to recycle. But now that I have used it for 40 years, I don't see a better building product on this planet. They don't rot. Termites don't get them. They're fantastic compression units structurally. They're great resilient bricks for earthquake. They have so many factors about them that I just can't match with any other material on Earth.
It's very scientific the way that you're laying this out and using these. Now, looking at the compressed earth, I want to ask another question about that. People say, well, you're using the soil. Now, how is that going to affect food production? So how does all this work together so that you're complementing the earth and not really taking anything away from it?
Well, you start out with a negative carbon footprint when you're using a material that you don't have to manufacture or remanufacture, you just gather and use. Gather and use is really beyond recycling, because recycling gets into quite a high volume of energy used to grind up and ship and bale various things that we throw away. You gather and use a tire. By virtue of the fact that you fill it with mass, earth, which is available everywhere on Earth, you create a tropical environment inside your home with no fuel. That environment grows food. And the process of growing food is a biological process that treats sewage. And it all works together with the harvesting of water, and then the reusing of the water. We reuse the sewage, the gray water from the planters that's growing the food. We regather it and flush the toilets with it. So we're extending the use of water. So it is holistic. It is much like the systems of your body. They all work together. The circulatory system, the digestive system, the respiratory system, they all work in conjunction with one another. And that's the way these systems in the Earthship work to provide a life for humans.
Looking at the use of recycled rainwater, this is something that I'm in Washington, D.C., and they say now that they have one of the largest programs as far as stormwater retention, but also capturing rainwater and use it for multiple purposes in high-rise buildings and at homes. So why water harvesting, number one, and number two, is it okay to use harvested rainwater for these different purposes that you're talking about in a structure as we're looking at right here?
Well, the water is running through the botanical cells that we use to grow the food in, actually treat the water. The plants treat the water and clean it up. And then we run it through for drinking. We run it through ceramic filters that are well known. And you're basically just using every drop of water. In fact, you're using it 4 times. So on a planet that is in the future destined to have some water problems, for us to start understanding how to use, reuse, and reuse water makes a lot of sense. And for us to incorporate that into every building even makes more sense. So there is no reason for us to have fluoride and chlorine filled water systems, municipal water systems, when water falls from the sky.
And the whole thing about too, Michael, is that people are saying, ooh, you know, think about using the water within my own house. Many of them don't realize that the water they're drinking may have gone through 15 or 20 other you know, recycling and purification systems as it comes down, you know, a major river. And so they're thinking this is really pure water, and that's exactly what you're doing within these structures themselves. Jose, why don't you ask the next question?
Sure. Michael, you're definitely a role model in the area of sustainable living. Do you have a particular role model or experience that inspired you to get into the area of resilience living patterns and designs?
Well, people ask me that a lot. No human comes to mind, but what would be, I would say, my mentor is a tree, because a tree does exactly what these Earthships do. A tree encounters the sun for energy. It encounters the earth for nutrients and moisture and water. It puts out oxygen for creatures like us to breathe and takes in what we exhale. Its leaves drop to the ground and turn into dirt for more trees. A tree is actually doing everything that we're having this Earthship do, and nobody ever says there are too many trees.
Well, and that's the whole thing, and of course we're trying to plant more trees all the time. But looking at the food that's coming out of this, I mean, this is really beautiful food. My understanding, this is actually being grown within the houses that we're talking about right now. So looking at the future, what do you see for the growth and development and expansion of the Earthships, say over the next 5, 10, and 15 years as we progress towards 2050?
Well, we do have an academy where we teach all of these principles with hands-on techniques, and we actually have the students live in Earthships. And so we're looking at it more like a virus, a good virus, that if it's right for people and right for the planet, it will grow. And we're trying to simply set up situations all around the planet where if this is right, it will grow.
This is Michael Reynolds. He's the director of Earthship, also representatives with Biotecture. He came in by Skype. Our special guest, Dr. Jose Colucci Rios, Professor Associate Dean, retired College of Engineering, University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. And thank you for being with us as we look at this innovative process, Earthships, as we create the Emerald Planet.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
We just finished dinner and it was time for homework. He hates homework. I know he's bright.
Why is it so hard for me?
He's just gotta try a little harder.
1 in 5 children struggle with learning and attention issues. Go from misunderstanding to understood.org.
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the creative galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Most party fouls, not a big deal. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul.
to the Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis, as we say, looking for the best of the best, those best solutions and the technologies, services, products, and the processes, of course, that are making a difference as we go through the 21st century. And as we go into the AI, artificial intelligence, many times the process is more important than the products that are coming out of that, because we can take that and create whole new ways of living and addressing the critical issues that we have on planet Earth. And we have a gentleman that's joining us, has been doing this for a number of years, doing this very thing with what he's calling Earthships, and he's going to tell us all about that. This is Michael Reynolds, Director of Earthship and Biotecture representative. He's coming in by Skype, and then sitting right beside me is our good friend and colleague, Dr. Jose Colucci-Rios, Professor, Associate Dean Retired, College of Engineering, University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez. And Michael, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, you've been at this a number of years, and yet people still marvel at how unique and different these Earthships are. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to create and the how of actually creating something that's called an Earthship.
Well, I actually started in the early 70s just responding to the news media and the world around me in terms of what I saw as to be problems relative to me creating a life for myself. And that one thing led to another. I looked around and, there were beer cans being thrown all over the streets and highways. Well, we were cutting trees to make housing. We want trees, we don't want beer cans. I put the two in reverse. I started making housing out of beer cans. We have an energy crunch next. We want to build energy into houses. I started beating thermal mass into tires. That also got rid of tires, and it also made housing that needed minimal to no fuel for staying comfortable. And so over 5 decades, I was just responding to the world around me, and I end up a decade or so ago with a building that I call the Earthship, actually a couple of decades ago, a building that I call the Earthship that is addressing all of my needs.
Looking at that, people talk about trash, about rubbish, and all these other derogatory terms and all this, but really what you found is a renewable resource, and so you're taking things that have been used before, and you're repurposing, reusing, recycling. Tell us why you decided to do that. You told us a little bit about the beer cans and, save the trees and all that. But your philosophy, I think, really goes much deeper than that.
Well, I think it's just a logical approach to what we see on this planet. And often I try to pretend that I just came here to this planet and what I see as a resource. Well, with billions of tires stacked up everywhere, I see tires as much of a resource as trees, and I actually see them as a better resource because they last longer, they don't rot. They're a very good, well-made product, as well as beer cans, as well as bottles, plastic bottles. So I am losing the word garbage in my vocabulary. These are natural resources, and they are gold. And this is sort of an alchemy process that turns these things that we call garbage into very valuable and some of the best building materials there are.
Yeah, and looking at this too is that many people say, ooh, I'm going to live in something that's made out of beer cans or bottles or tires or whatever. The way that you design these are just absolutely gorgeous structures, quite unique. And in many ways, this looks something reminiscent of what you would see back in the Renaissance and the early times of human beings on this planet. So it's amazing, Michael, what you've done, this fusion of modern day materials are being repurposed and going back and capturing some of these very unique and ancient building styles. Jose, I think you have the next question.
Yes, Michael, good evening. I have a real tough one for you now. How do we get more citizens involved into sustainable living, and not only for themselves, but also to include all living creatures in the planet?
Well, I think we have to make it, it has to be attractive to them. It has to be warm for less money. Yes, they're going to respond to some ecological pros and good points, but mostly people are looking at an economical way to survive and a safe way to survive, and we have to present it that way, that these buildings will withstand an earthquake and an 8-yard concrete truck sitting on top of them. These buildings will keep you warm. These buildings will take care of you. They will not blow away in a hurricane. They will give you water. They are safe havens for the future. And I think getting that information out there, not as propaganda, but as the truth. Let them show you what they can do, these buildings. And that's what we're trying to do all over the planet, is just show it. And if it's not right, people won't want it. If it is right, people will want it.
The whole thing about it too, and I really like your philosophy, Michael, about, you know, build it, they will come, kind of, but really what you're saying is this is the, you know, the right time for the right people as we expand the population on planet Earth. And yet we have, you know, mounting garbage all over. And so, as you're saying, we're going to just do away with that term and say this is a renewable resource. But looking at this wall that we're looking at in the construction of this house out of all these repurposed materials, how do you balance that, the future of sustainable living as a dream, but also meet the challenge of where we're going in the 21st century, and yet giving opportunities for people for jobs and really create the green environment and the next green economy?
Well, I think when people end up having a home that absolutely takes care of them, provides them with all of their utilities, then that's affecting the economy right there. It's making the economy a little bit more insignificant because they don't need the economy for power, water, sewage, and food. The sustenance of people becomes something that they can get for themselves. So that is its own economy, and I call it an insignificant economy because right now you have to get money to get everything. The economy is almost like God. You have to go through it to get anything that you want. But this method that we call the Earthship concept will actually provide your actual sustenance for you. And I think that is the future. The future is empowering people to obtain their own sustenance through encounter of Earth phenomena. And then economy becomes a game.
The whole thing about it too, Michael, you look at this large living room, it's wide open space, multiple functions going on here. They're taking care of their waste, they're harvesting the water, they're not having to go on the grid for their power, you know, heat and cool, take care of their basic needs and all that. But yet you have something that's absolutely beautiful and well designed. So how do we incorporate these very modern open designs into something that, you know, is being used as, you know, and made from repurposed materials so that people are comfortable and they want to be there?
Well, you definitely, we must make it attractive and comfortable for people, and it can go into any style. I use a lot of the aesthetics I use are my personal feelings. But we're training other architects and people, just individuals, to do this for themselves, and they give it a whole different aesthetic, and it's beautiful. In other words, we want to empower people to actually produce their own housing or participate in producing their own housing. And it goes beyond housing. We're doing schools now too, as well as commercial buildings. So the empowering of people to participate, I think, is key. And that's why we have an Earthship Academy that we take around the world and have sessions in Taos, New Mexico, to empower people and so that they understand and want to move forward with this.
Yeah, and looking at this, I mean, this is absolutely a beautiful structure. We're looking at this photograph here, and this house is actually sitting there. very passively, but yet it's absorbing the energy and turning it in, to electricity and heating and cooling and all the things that we need. So why Earthships are so important as a humanitarian factor, not just for humans, but a humanitarian factor?
Well,
our lives and how we see our futures.
We're looking at how humans relate to this planet and how they encounter this planet in a way that is not going to cause the planet to just reject them. And that's a key factor in our future. And the Earthship concept, I think, addresses that and simply provides a pathway for people to move in the direction of being able to relate to the planet as a creature just like us that is actually taking care of us and giving us a ride, a free ride, so to speak. And I think it's important to look at it that way rather than looking at it as something we can exploit, mine, frack, drill, and use till it's dead, and then it can no longer take care of us.
And what you're doing is you're really building the bridge. Jose, we got one last question. We have to be quick, Michael.
Sure. Michael, you mentioned academy, you mentioned education. If you were to come up with some instructions for the citizens to start the process, do you have like 4 or 5 steps that they can look to start going into self-sufficiency?
Well, I think looking at learning, I would say the first step I would suggest is to intern or on an Earthship project or go to an Earthship academy that addresses these issues, go into that, and it will lead you into employment and a home for yourself and a better way of life.
And looking at this, and when you say a better way of life, we're looking at different countries and different environments from Native Americans and around the globe, and how very different areas. But looking at this, and we're going to go out on this, Michael, what do you see for Earthships as far as the acceptance by the public of these as we move out the next 5, 10, or 15 years?
Well, I've been doing it for 50 years. I have seen it steadily crescendo over those 50 years. And from here, I see it still going up in terms of the number of people that want to do it. And I'm looking at it as a virus. And I hope to just keep nurturing this virus.
A beautiful one as we're looking at this entranceway into this home made out of these bottles. This is Michael Reynolds, Director of Earthship, and Biostructure Representative, Dr. Jose Colucci Rios, sitting right beside me. From the University of Puerto Rico, retired Mayagüez. And thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Guess what? I have some news for you. There's free food right there, junk food. You see that truck? Oh, jeez. It's a 2 Michelin star chef. All for free, ladies and gentlemen. All for free.
Here we have a panzanella with summer vegetables and pesto. Enjoy. How we doing?
Fantastic. So what do you got going on underneath that plate there?
This food is really about to be thrown away.
Yeah.
Bro? Is there something wrong with this food? Where did you get it from?
From farmers markets. They put aside the ugly vegetables and the ugly fruits.
Carrot top, soft avocados. It was all food that was going to be discarded.
Even the drink you had is made from like a little bruised peach. Did it taste a little bruised?
Great. It's good.
The average person throws away 24 pounds of food a month. That's a lot. Isn't that a lot? Go visit savethefood.com for more information. Thank you. Junk food time!
to the Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we're looking around the globe at how we're going to take care of a planet by 2050, 9 billion people, and then we're going forward to maybe 12 to 13 billion by the end of the century. And how do we have it so that people are actually increasing the quality of life and have better ways of living, and at the same time to save the planet. Climate change is alive and well and spreading at a very dastardly rate, and so we want to reverse that. And we have someone who's actually going around the globe to talk about Biotecture, and she's going to talk about what that is, and Earthships. And this is Deborah Binder. Right now in the Canary Islands in Spain. She's a manager for international public relations for Biotecture Planet Earth, coming in by Skype. And our special guest, our good friend and colleague, Dr. Jose Colucci, who is the professor, associate dean, retired out of the College of Engineering, University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. And we're always glad to have you with us, Jose. Thank you for being here. And Deborah, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV. Well, we got to get the sound in. So you're over in the Canary Islands, a long way from the east coast of the United States, and yet you're working on the Biotecture Planet Earth projects as well as the Earthships. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
Well, Biotecture Planet Earth is a registered nonprofit organization in the United States. And what we do is that we construct and teach how to construct self-sustainable buildings, also called Earthships, all around the world, mainly in communities that need it and for humanitarian purposes.
Now, looking at your work, and I must say you did a fantastic job in getting us all ready as far as this television program is concerned, but being a manager of international public relations, how does that directly relate to Biotecture and actually spreading the good news across the planet that people can be involved in creating their own homes out of materials that actually may be on the streets, sidewalks, and the alleyways in their own communities?
Yeah, well, we're a small nonprofit, so public relations and fundraising is a big part of it to make this happen. You know, unfortunately, something that seems so logical to a lot of us, something like sustainable living or sustainable construction, using what the planet and nature is giving us to be fully self-sustainable is something that for many people out there is not common sense yet. So we do spend quite a bit of time in communication and promoting it and public relations and fundraising to be able to do these projects around the world.
Yeah, but the whole thing about it really is education is really the emphasis of what you're doing, and that's very important because the world is not structured. We're fragmented. You know, we depend on hundreds, thousands of others as far as the supply chain, and to think that we can actually go out and build our own home with materials from right in our own community really is a foreign concept to so many people. Tell us a little bit about the 2 or 3 main projects in which you've been involved, because you are going around the world involved with the Biotecture and also the Earthships, and what countries and why these particular countries were selected.
Mm-hmm. So we do 2 types of projects. We do a lot of disaster relief projects. So right now we are involved in a project in Puerto Rico as a response to Hurricane Maria in September of last year. We also did a big project in the Philippines after Typhoon Yolanda hit there. We did a project in Nepal in response to the hurricanes they had in 2015. And then we also do projects with communities that we think have a need to be self-sustainable. So we did a big project, for example, in Malawi, which is the 3rd poorest country in the world and is extremely dependent on external aid. So for remote communities in that country, it is extremely valuable become self-sustainable and independent of that external aid from outside of the country.
Yeah, in many of these countries too, they really have very weak infrastructure, and the whole thing about, you know, water, wastewater treatment in many places just does not exist. Food production of your own, also structures. Many people will save money and they'll take them 15, 20, 30 years to build a house because they buy the gravel, then they'll buy the sand, then they'll buy, something else, and it may take 5 or 6 years try to get their one room. But what you're doing, as an example in this photograph here, is you're actually taking the trash, the garbage from these areas and turning it into something and repurposing it. So looking at this repurposing, what's the concept of that?
So we try to use as much material that is naturally available. And by not being naturally available, I don't mean just natural materials, but also what we consider garbage. So tires, for example, old glass bottles, cardboard, plastic bottles, those are all byproduct of our society that now are naturally available materials that can be used for building. So we try to repurpose as much as possible as what we can find locally.
Yeah, and then also too, you're using renewable energy and other things that actually takes it off grid and not be dependent on that. Jose, you have the question, sir.
Yes, good evening, Deborah. Impressive projects. I have a question. How easy, or let's say challenging, especially when you have such a great project, to replicate it even within a country, or you mentioned Puerto Rico, from one community to the other, or even to another country? I mean, how easy or challenging that effort is?
So one of our biggest objectives, obviously, is not only to construct these buildings, but to teach people on how to do it themselves. Because obviously, if we were the only ones that were able to construct these buildings, then the business model or the model itself as a nonprofit wouldn't be sustainable. So one of our main objectives is knowledge transfer. So we always have people from all over the world, and also a lot of local residents that we are teaching on how to build these. And then if the materials are available, which usually they are, then they're very easily replicable. And we've had great case studies where that has been shown in Sierra Leone and Malawi, where the locals have finished the buildings themselves. In Fiji, we did a building that was then replicated in New Zealand and then was again replicated twice more in Vanuatu, for example. And now in Puerto Rico, with the project that's there, we have over 70 local residents involved that are also learning how to be able to construct buildings and then go out and do it themselves.
Yeah, and looking at the structure you have right here, I'm kind of a Japanese file. I've spent most of my life studying, working, and living in Japan. And a lot of this structure you're looking at right here is something, if you go back 2,000 years in Japanese history, it almost would look like this, minus the tires, of course. And it's just amazing how, these ideas come back at different time eras and epochs within the United States and around the globe. But if you had a limitless budget, what the kind of things would you be sharing with people, or what types of structures would you be building and helping people with?
Well, I think we have identified the structure pretty well. I mean, it is all, Earthships are fully self-sustainable, and as you said, they harvest their own rainwater, they produce their own energy, they're made with repurposed material, they produce food. So I think for me, it would really just depend on spending more time analyzing what need there is in a certain area and constructing according to that. Like, for example, right now in South Africa, there's a huge problem in the area of Cape Town where people are literally running out of water. So it would be absolutely incredible to be building structures there that focus mostly on harvesting rainwater and having people be able to use that water, for example. And then also there's refugees all over the world now. How amazing would it be to have some of these communities learn how to build these buildings and then create jobs for these people and then show other people how to do it. So these are the type of projects that I think we're, as an organization, we're interested for the future.
Yeah, looking at the structure you have right here, and we'll use this as an example. This is in Puerto Rico, and my dear friend sitting right beside me, of course, is very interested in all this and the rebuilding there after the very devastating hurricane. But you're putting so many different disparate areas in this: water harvesting, sewage treatment, food production, using renewable energy, taking materials and repurposing them so it's something that was once garbage and rubbish yesterday, and now it's a very precious building material. So how do you get this across to people? Because it looks like you're using disparate people, PhDs, truck drivers, people who have never built a structure before in their whole life, to people that actually have owned multiple construction companies. How do you mold all these people together so that they work and actually can turn out something that's very unique and beautiful as this?
Well, it's a very simple construction process. That's what's so beautiful about it, is that anybody can really do this. And in the projects that we do, the feeling of community is something that is really big, because I mean, you can imagine in Puerto Rico, for example, in this project that we did in February, we were down there for a week, and we had 70 local residents plus 30 volunteers from all over the world, with obviously language barriers and so on, and everybody came together and was able to build what you have just shown on that picture. And that's something that is incredible, that gives people goosebumps. And being able to do that, no matter what your background is and where you come from, and no matter if you have any construction background or not, that is something really beautiful about it.
This is actually a veterinary, so you're moving into commercial buildings. What do you see in Puerto Rico and other places, self-sufficiency living over the next 5, 10, or 15 years, this movement and where it's going to be going? And we have to be quick. We're out of time.
Well, I think we'll just be continuing what we do now, but probably on a larger scale, hopefully, and having more and more people interested in being a part of this movement. That's fantastic.
Deborah Binder, Manager, International Public Relations, Biotecture Planet Earth. My good friend, Dr. Jose Colucci, a retired Associate Dean Professor at the University of Puerto Rico. And thank you for being with us as we look around the globe at this biotexture, the Earthships, as we create the Emerald Planet.